You are listening to In the Monster's Wake. Audio production, musical score, and original story by R.S. Meander. Performed by Beatrice Craft, J. Noble, and R.S. Meander. Thank you for listening.
Above, gulls shouted impertinent cries. Around me, sweaty shoulders bumped and prodded one another. Below, the sea gurgled as it lapped the wooden beams supporting the weight of the city's shoreside quarter, and I couldn't remember ever being so excited.
Up there, you'll see the finest example of Port Glass cuisine.
First Mate Robert pointed to his shack, dangling precariously over the edge of one of the city's many-tiered levels. Smoke and pungent, rancid odors smothered us. I held back a retch. His chuckle was abrupt, genuine, but not unkind.
Maybe it should be called Port Ass.
I giggled. It's not their fault. I can't stand seafood, even good seafood. He stopped walking and turned to face me. The most off-putting thing about Robert was his penchant for covering his torso with only a long leather jacket worn down by time and salt to a papery thinness. He always left it open to expose a soft, yet somehow masculine pair of breasts. He was incredulous.
Don't like sea... Whale balls, girl! Why'd you join up with a ship?
Maybe it's because I'd rather admire fish than eat them. I pondered his colorful interjection for a moment. No, I don't think I'd like to eat whale balls either. Unless, maybe if they're from a Galatract whale, or a Hronadrek orca. Both are very nutritious. He stared at me like I had sprouted scales and sharp teeth. A cool breeze ran between us, accentuating the comedy of his exposed nipples.
Cool,
he finally said with a slight nod. Core?
Means good.
He cocked his head to the side.
Where'd you say you're from again?
Gorgonis. Vlazina. I beamed. Galeb district. He smiled with an open mouth.
Ah, cool. That's right. You're the beaster.
It was such an outdated term. Zivost I corrected. Or an homologist, if you prefer.
Whatever suits you.
He continued walking. Soon we reached a plaza where a massive square in the boardwalk opened onto the sea below. The water was dark and still, strangely so.
Here's where the caucus meets talk about trade prices and laws and shit. Unless you save those old bones, the better.
He rubbed one of his shoulders in an exaggerated gesture.
Hope you're ready to put in some work besides counting fish. We've got Razric starting, and every crew member holds their share.
Ever since my education in Vlazina, I'd been warned that not all would understand the importance of a Zivost. I'll do what the captain asks, I said. But the next time your ship is being tracked by a great fallow or a crimson-eyed maw, you'll be glad to have a fish counter with you.
You're right.
He apologized.
We've been too long without one.
He stared at the deep, empty square.
Too long.
Robert's eyes were beady but beautiful, like shifting twinkles of night sand. Even though much about him seemed low and unattractive, those eyes were his best quality.
Well, I've got to say goodbye to my kids.
I hadn't been a seafarer long, but it seemed odd that the first mate on a port glass razor would be attached to anyone landside long enough to raise children. You have kids? His belly bounced as he laughed.
Shock you. Ain't much work around here, even for a papa. Now, go.
He waved calloused fingers at me.
Shoo! We'll find some way to unwind before we set off.
Unwind?
You know, relax, blow off steam, whatever. Won't get another chance once we start Razric.
Oh, okay. When...
Meet at Journey's End at Third Blow. Remember where I pointed her out?
I think so, yes.
Core!
He happily exclaimed.
See you there.
He trotted away from the plaza. Unwind, I thought to myself. How am I going to do that? The most surprising thing about their skin was how warm and soft it was. I had expected a Cyreid to feel coarse like marine fish. They both had gills, after all. But as this one lay behind me, spooning my own naked body with theirs, all I felt was heat, and a velvety sensation not unlike a young trout or marine mammal. I suppose most would find that comparison off-putting, but well, nothing about that moment was unappealing.
You said Razric is soon?
They asked, outstretching an arm over mine until our fingers became interlocked. Their hand was warm too, warm and iridescent green like the rest of them. I replied absent-mindedly. Their hand released from mine. Tomorrow, I think. It was hard to carry on a conversation while their fingers danced around the small of my back, rounding around my stomach, but I dared not stop them. What is it exactly? I understand it means all the ships will be out to sea, but what's it all about? I recoiled a little as cool water graced my ear. Cyreid hair was a living fluid bound to their scalps. Most commonly, it took the form of beautiful blue seawater. This one's was darker, an opaque mystery, like the ocean depths. And it pleasantly left no residual moisture on what it touched, which was good news for the bed. I might have even been jealous of it had I not already adored my own fiery head of normal human hair.
Oh.
They moaned ominously.
It's much more than that. Razric is like a holiday, competition, and battle cry, all wrapped up in the hearts of glassers, like you.
They rolled over me, spilling themselves onto the other side of the bed. While my skin shivered under a mist of sweat, they seemed calm to their core. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised by that. I smiled, lifting a leg over their hip. Is that what I am now? A glasser? I said the word like a joke, but I honestly enjoyed the concept. I never expected to stay in Gorgonus, but belonging somewhere else was always uncertain. They smirked and tilted their head down, letting small, fin-like extensions slump from the side of their face.
When Port Glass was founded, its people relied on the sale of rare sand to trade and make profit. The sand could be fashioned into beautiful, unyielding glass.
I knew these facts well, but I wanted to see their lips move again and hear the rhythmic pulse of their voice. It reminded me of the ebb of waves.
The desert surrounding the port eventually ran out of this kind of sand. So to survive, the population needed to change some things.
Then they placed a finger on the bedsheet, tracing a large circle between my navel and the spot on their stomach where a navel would have been.
The founders said, "This ocean has kept us alive with fish in our bellies and trade on our ships. But the trade lessens, and the sand disappears. So we must look to other ways of profit." So they formed the largest fleet of ships the world has ever seen, turning half their haulers into chimerons and half their schooners into razors. They sent out each ship, merchant and battleship alike, across this ocean, and whoever brought back the most profit was given lavish riches and a spot on the Caucasus. To this day, the race of riches, the Razric in the tongue of the Old Alliance, is a festival that infuses Port Glass with blood and gold.
A distant horn's blow thrummed against the walls, startling me. I wonder which I'm on, I murmured.
What do you mean?
My new ship, the Journey's End. Is it a merchant vessel after gold, or a battleship seeking blood?
Strange you don't know.
I shrugged. I haven't asked. I didn't want to. I needed the job more than anything, and fear could have talked me out of it.
Well, based on how you jumped at the third blow, it means you have to go, doesn't it?
I nodded, sighed, and began to sit up, fumbling around for my clothes. Soon I found the blue robe one of the other children at my old orphanage had gifted me, then the white breechcloth. Are you from Rain? The real you, I mean. They sat up, resting their cheek to their knee.
Most Cyrides are.
Their eyes became suddenly distant. I'd like to go there one day. They laughed, soft.
You'd love it, Morane. But unfortunately, there's more pages of treaties barring outsiders than grains of sand on this beach. My people keep their independence, and Salakar gets our merchandise. That's the deal. But there's plenty to love about the mainland. Did you know that there's a lake at the center of Salakar, so big that it looks like an ocean? It has its own monsters, treasures, and ships. Hard to imagine.
Their excitement was adorable and familiar. I ran my fingers through their watery hair one last time. It felt like submerging a hand in a gentle stream. I hope to see you again. What was your name? Still lying recumbent, they smiled and said,
I'm called Abyss, and you can see me anytime you want to, Morane.
After dressing myself, I grabbed the pink gem from the gold bowl on a stand near the bed. The light inside the gem went away, and Abyss vanished, not even leaving an impression on the sheets. I exited the room and walked back down the stairs to the dingy lobby. How is Abyss? Asked the chipper and presumably real Cyride behind the counter. Great. I had no clue how I was supposed to respond to that. I'm not surprised. They're a patron favorite. Not wanting to think of them being with anyone else, I held out the gem for her to take. Do I need to do anything else? Nope. You paid the fee before you went up. Enjoy, Razric. Right. You too. I stopped before walking out. Hey, so... Yes? If her smile was any wider, her blue ocean hair would have splashed her cheeks. Are they real? The people in the gemstones? She shook her head, still beaming. The Rusapati are only memories. Oh, good, I guess. Rusapati, sweet illusions. My first brothel, my first Cyride, and it was already just a memory of a memory.
You all know the rules. Have arrived at the designated time and have registered with the caucus authority.
Shouted a Togron from a driftwood stage erected on the dock. The elderly feline man hunched over a comically wide podium. His pointed ears had chunks taken out of them, and his ochre fur gave way to frequent white patches. But in spite of his obvious age, he ceremoniously stretched two strong arms as thick as masts into the air.
698 Razric have preceded this event. Make number 699 the greatest of all.
Choking the harbor, over 200 vessels roared with thunderous applause which vibrated the bay's surface, and my teeth. The fleet was comprised of mercantile schooners, primitive rowboats from Beauregard, privatized galleys from the Imperiac of Phylaxis, astoundingly advanced triteams from Gorgonus, and of course the two signature classes of port-glass ships, the nimble razors and the floating fortresses Chimerons. Being surrounded by that much power, that much freedom, was elating.
Robert, is the beast her?
Asked a man twice Robert's height.
This be her.
He replied, slapping my shoulder. The saucer-sized hand nearly pushed me off deck.
And it's the worst, Captain. Oh, Animologist, if you prefer.
He added, winking at me.
Mary?
The captain asked, craning his already hunched neck down to my level. His smile was more of a static condition than a polite gesture. It was subtle and barely curved at the edges. His woolen cloak seemed to rise over his thin shoulders as the rest of him sank to me. Morane L. And you must be Captain Raiden.
Raiden Knight.
His voice was deep and as coarse as his stubble-covered face.
I apologize. I'd approved your hiring before getting all your details from the fixer. You might say I'm eager to fill the position.
He pointed to a missing section of the railing where the quarterdeck met with the main deck. The remaining struts ended in splinters.
Our last venture without a beaster was costly. We didn't see the signs of an Ugin.
Ugins, or dread sharks, were massive fish with superficially shark-like characteristics. They tended to attack ships that got too near their nesting sites. Any entomologist worth her salt would have been able to identify their oil dispersion plume and steer the ship clear. How unfortunate, I offered with a forced frown.
On that note, Captain,
Robert started.
Perilous took too long finding repair wood. She never got around to submitting the updated manifest. Should I send someone with it to the authority now?
At that moment, a monstrosity of a ship pulled to our starboard. Constructed from an intimidating mixture of thick lumber, sheet metal, and titanic bones, it was one of the infamous Chimerons. Its silhouette looked like the jawbone of some long-snouted predator. Its teeth were shallow, spiked barriers meant to defend the crew from ranged assault. The ship's fore and aft held towers where archers stood sentry, the two rear towers being slightly higher than those in front. Sails of reinforced textiles limply awaited a breeze, and underneath the deck an upturned carapace of a giant crustacean provided more than enough buoyancy to keep it all afloat. It dwarfed the Journey's End, which was a stylish but modest schooner of the more conventional razor design. Grasping a boom and leading towards us, a towering Gatus woman called in a hissing, gruff voice.
Best keep that robot docked, Nighty-Night. Wouldn't want to lose any more pieces to... What was it again? Dolphins.
Her scaled tail flicked from side to side as if laughing. Consternation flashed across Captain Knight's face.
Keep your forked tongue inside that thick skull, lizard, lest I clap your hands in irons and send you back to your masters.
He grinned with bared teeth.
I still have your chains.
The Gatus hissed, tugging on the leather straps of her patchwork vest.
You pep no try and my clan will finish that wreck where the organ left off.
Several other Gatus on her ship stopped their duties to face us. Each rose their palms in the air as if pushing up invisible boxes. I knew that sign. It was the symbol of the Provane Verarat Rebellion, the alliance of Gatus clans that attacked the Gorgonisian people years ago. My people. Stout frills on the sides of her head shrank as the boom swept over her. Then her slitted eyes locked on me.
That one wears Gorgonis colors. Think that little slaver Pepno will win the Razrik for you?
Our captain stepped between me and the lizard's gaze.
Be off with ya, Kalak,
He shouted, waving a thin-fingered backhand.
Sure thing.
She belted out a hideous cackle into the horizon.
Best you not sit around. Nighty-night. Else you lose the day entirely.
With that, the Chimeron lumbered away towards the open ocean. I was relieved to be rid of the horrible Gatus and thankful for the captain's intervention. My captain's.
Cast off.
Knight said, blowing away from me.
But Captain,
Robert protested.
we haven't got nearly enough goods loaded. Not to mention the Authority doesn't have our new manifest.
Cast off, I said.
A deadly silence hung in the air. Robert's beady eyes fixed on Knight's aged but fiery irises. The first mate seemed to be searching for something in his captain's soul. Eventually, he turned away and joined the rest of the crew hard at work prepping the ship. I caught up with Robert as he was helping to secure half-empty crates on deck. I began assisting him in tying nets over each stack. Then I asked,
"Who was that Gatus?"
His focus didn't leave his work, but he said,
Keloctonok. She's the captain of the Vara raft.
It was a play on the name of the Gatus capital, Vararet.
Cute name for a ship full of bloodthirsty murderers.
I ignored his silence.
She seemed to have history with our captain.
Kellock and most of her crew used to be prisoners
He spat out the word distastefully.
of Gorgonis. They were sold to Captain Knight and his crew, our crew, transported them here. We sold them to another captain as involuntary labor.
Oh,
Any Gorgonesian that traveled beyond the Infinite Kingdom quickly realized that Gorgonis held a reputation as expansive conquerors and enslavers. In my view, we simply explored and defended ourselves against the Gatus of Vararet, against the Togrons, against Pharisees, against Gabafal. The whole world hated us. Many times I'd been called Pepnu, an insult whose meaning had been lost by time but clearly directed towards humans. Luckily, the crew of the Journey's End were all human, so I had nothing to fear from them.
Not long after, a whole lot of them mutinied.
He grinned.
Claimed the ship and ate the captain, as I heard it.
that's not funny.
Wasn't meant to be. Look, Morane, don't worry about your broadside. Focus on the waves and sky ahead. Captain will take care of the rest. Core.
I sighed.
Core.
He walked away. Open ocean was a blessing at first. The water as blue and sweet as a candied berry. The air as refreshing and full of warmth as an embrace. Then the empty days began to graft into each other like vines. Even a storm would have been welcome to liven things up. But weeks passed, and the only thing to break up the monotony was the occasional minor trade with a passing boat. We sailed all the way to Pleasant Canal, a vassal state within the Gorgonesian Sea, almost full circle for me. But all we managed to acquire were some lackluster trinkets. We gave our stocks of fish and ale for a pile of Togron plunder. The haul was meager, but the captain ordered the few bronze statues and other baubles to be gathered in a pile above deck, instead of being secured safely below. They shimmered under corded nets, and as I noticed the crew stealing glances, I realized Knight had left it out in the open as a prideful display. Perhaps he hoped a passing ship would notice and be intrigued enough to trade more. As for the rest of the crew, what we had already was enough to keep their pockets full and families fed. However, Knight still seemed dissatisfied. As time passed, I could see the captain grow more impatient and Robert more uneasy. This Razric meant more to Knight than a mere contest. He was hell-bent on exploring the furthest reaches he could afford to go within the allotted time. Vast riches must have hid just behind this rock or that island. So was his hope. While the captain and his first mate sparred in their own arena, I bore the brunt of the crew's frustration. I made efforts to join in on the daily tasks, tightening, rigging, distributing rations, even hauling in fishing nets. But the people on board, my fellow laborers, knew these weren't assigned chores. I could lounge about the deck all day should I have wished. I was a foreigner, a newcomer, and the recipient of special treatment. It was daunting how they leered while Knight gave me my weekly earnings, a luxury provided by my entomologist's contract and in very poor taste to the regulars who were paid only at the end of the voyage. Eventually, we'd reached the midway point of our enterprise, and even the captain acknowledged our need to return. An odd mixture of defeat and relief permeated the journey's end, but on the second day of the 4th week at sea, our barrelman spotted something off our starboard.
Gotta be 100 meters at least,
one woman said incredulously. Knight rested his tense hands on the railing. He stared at the immense shape gliding under the water. It was indeed over 100 meters, closer to 200.
Time for our beaster to earn her pay,
he said. I scrutinized its form, size, and behavior as I'd been taught. All manner of marine and aquatic species were known to me better than others know their relatives. But as I watched the creature make erratic circles just over a stone's throw from the journey's end, one thing became clear.
Captain,
I whispered.
I have no idea what that is.
I did not just hear you say that.
He gripped the railing tighter.
It's the size of a maw, but the wrong shape. It moves like a dirge ray, but it's acting erratic, as if...
90 brass I've already paid you, girl.
That got the crew's attention.
That's more than any beaster I've ever had.
He croaked in my face.
So don't tell me you don't know it from a pimple on your ass. Is it going to swallow my ship whole or not?
All eyes were on me. Even Robert's usual look of sympathy was tinted with disappointment. I steeled my nerves and said,
Let me get a better look at it.
With determination, I scaled the loose ladder leading up to the crow's nest. At the top, the barrelman greeted me with a wary nod and asked,
What kind of demon spirit is it, beaster?
I nodded back, but didn't answer right away. From the higher perspective, I could make out more details. The thing had extended segments of its body, like several arms. It moved quickly in its spiraling. It was like it met no resistance in the water. So much of the situation was familiar. Ancient alarms in my memory were sounding, but the reasons were lost on me.
Something I should know,
I finally whispered to him. Suddenly, the silhouette decided on a heading. Us. Any crew near the starboard edge immediately gave up their observation and retreated to the other side of the ship. All except the captain, that is. Without wake or sound, the thing charged through the water, meaning to ram us. Then it stopped just shy, holding meters from the ship. It seemed like our elongated shadow in the setting sun.
By the fester undersea!
The old barrelman cursed. I was about to second the sentiment before I began to hear a high-pitched noise. It was like the whistle of an arrow being loosed at high speed. The silhouette began to shrink.
It's diving!
Someone shouted.
Leaving us alone!
Some others hesitantly laughed and applauded, but something told me that it wasn't over. And then,
wait!
I called. Words were given to my internal alarms, instructions. Look up! I obeyed the instinct, and what I saw chilled my bones. Growing rapidly, a dark shape under the sun screamed with the whistling sound.
Get down!
I tackled the man next to me just as the mast above us was shattered in a flurry of splinters and golden feathers. The Caracul Arbet, Mirror Belly, Sun Screamer, master of the noon skies and scantily covered subject in my courses. So infinitesimal were the occurrences that sailors had seen the Caracul Arbet that my masters decided it not necessary to instruct me on their appearance or behavior. Many entomologists even believed them myths. My education of them was limited to a single paragraph from a dusty text hidden in a small archive. Caracul Arbet, as translates to bird of reflective belly in modern dialect, are thought to be native to the coastal lands of Astragulan disbursement. As no Zivost has been present to properly document the sightings of the modern age, information on their very existence is scant. It is said that the Caracul Arbet uses its metallic feathers to create illusions of shadow and light, to both intimidate rivals and distract prey. That info tracked. It had used its own shadow by masterfully positioning between us and the sun. The uncanny silhouette looked just like a submerged creature. But if this was a mirror belly, why was it near Salakar, so far from its home? And why attack us? There'd been no record of vessels being attacked. I had little time to ponder this before the house-sized creature dove at us again, blinding us by reflecting sunlight at the ship. This time, the tip of the mast cracked and fell, spilling us into the foresail. I locked hands with the barrelman as we slid down until hanging on the lower rigging. Below, Captain Knight shouted,
"Rocketside!"
Two of the crew raised their unsleeved arms and cried incantations. Until now, I had thought them standard mates, but watching the flashes of lightning stream from their palms, I realized they were expellents, sorcerers for hire. Their attacks did little to deter the beast. Even lightning couldn't catch the golden blur as it arched over us.
"Drop! Now! We have you!"
I heard Robert say from under our dangling feet. I looked down to see him and several others waiting to catch us. The barrelman and I exchanged nods and let go. Strong hands cushioned our descent.
Thank you, sir,
I said to Robert as he looked down at me. He grinned, then asked,
"What have we got, beaster? I mean, animalogist."
I waved in the air, meant to be an acknowledgement of his efforts to address me properly.
A Mirabelli, by the Infinite Kings.
"Never heard of it,"
he said. I wasn't surprised. Knight ran to my side, hunkering down with the rest of us as it dove to attack again, its piercing whistle deafening us. This time it took more than wood. One of the expellents vanished as the shimmering blur washed over them. To my horror, the beast's whistle and their scream harmonized. The man's legs, now without a torso, fell back on the pile of loot, splattering the bronze with crimson.
"Whale balls!
Knight roared.
How do we stop this terror, beaster?"
All I could manage to say was,
It shouldn't even be here.
as part of my training, I'd led several voyages on the hunt for sea monsters of all kinds, but I was utterly unprepared for an attack like this. If that wasn't clear in my voice, my quaking hands made Knight aware.
"If we live through this, girl, I'm dropping you into the deep myself. Useless thing you are."
My heart sank further into my stomach. I could practically feel it dissolving in acid.
"Come! We've never even heard of anything like this."
Robert came to my defense, but it made no difference to my self-pity.
"Seems to want a meal of us. Maybe we could wait it out below deck."
They don't hunt ships, I couldn't help but think.
"And let it make a ruin of the end. We'd limp back to port in another month. We cut it down now, or we die trying."
Robert stopped his captain with a piercing look. Then the whistle returned along with another golden flash. This time, a man crouching near the loot cried out in pain, and a gash formed on his back. He was luckier than the expellent. Twice, the Mirabelli had attacked the crew near that shimmering treasure. Was there something special about it?
The bronze!
I shouted. Both Robert and the captain looked at me quizzically.
The objects must look like another Mirabelli. It's so obvious now. It thinks we have another of its kind on board. Maybe it wants to mate with it, or it thinks it's a rival. It might be a rogue male exiled from its native territory. That would explain why it's so far.
"How in the undersea does that help us, beaster?"
Knight interjected, teeth clenched. Robert said,
"Raiden!"
His face became grim, as if he was a healer about to give a terminal diagnosis.
"We need to toss it overboard."
The captain clenched his teeth so hard I feared one might bust.
"No, out of the whole damn question. We can move it below deck, or cover it up. We aren't losing the only profit we've made during this whole Razric."
The sullen look on Robert's face told me he and I had the same notion. Those ideas led to disaster. The only way for it to leave us alone was to cause it to chase the bronze elsewhere, while we escaped. It was too determined to abandon the other Mirabelli so easily. Some others had armed themselves with bucklers, spears, and waist-mounted ballistas. But as it dove for another assault, every counter from the journey's end proved slow and futile. For the briefest moment, I saw the thing's head clear and radiant. A gradient of gold feathers changed to rose as they cascaded down its face. Its eyes had no pupils. chunks of marble gravel, and its beak was hooked at the end, an excellent vice for skewering fish or foolhardy seamen.
Damn you, Raiden!
Robert shouted.
You just got Heisen!
Heaving his stout girth, he stood and prepared to move on the loot. Knight grabbed him by the arm, saying in a quiet but coarse voice where every word seemed a dagger to the throat.
Don't you dare.
Robert's wide head sank, and for a minute it appeared he'd comply with his orders. Then his glare met mine. Between the rush of danger and numerous distractions, I don't remember what expression I was making, but something about it must have stirred Robert. One of his meaty fists rose like a breaching whale into Knight's jaw. Our captain fell, his back hitting the deck hard. Robert's jacket left him as he sprinted to the hill of treasure. It was held in place by a large net. He drew a dagger from his boot and cut the rope at the corners. Knight recovered and bellowed,
Mutiny!
But before he could race to stop his first mate, the Mirabelli took another pass at us. I screamed, believing without a doubt that it'd next rip Robert in two. However, for a stockier man, he proved quite agile. He rolled nimbly out of the way, leaving the bird's talons nothing but sea mist and air. Knight, meanwhile, hunkered beside the base of a mast. Some of the crew ran to join Robert in pushing the treasure overboard, proving that there was such a thing as too much risk for some brassers. We then watched as the Caracular bet circled high overhead. Its now silhouetted black form seemed to pause, observing the waters that swallowed its kin. To his credit, Knight took no time in recovering command.
Hard port, double time.
The crew manned their stations as they'd been drilled many times. I looked over at the aft railing, studying the Mirabelli now shrinking from view. More words from the archived text ran to my head. As no Zivast had been present to properly document the sightings of the modern age, information of their very existence is scant. I would have plenty to write in my journal later that night.
Shouldn't be seen with us mutineers, Morane.
Robert whispered to me from behind the iron bars. He and the others that aided him in pushing the valuables overboard had been arrested on Knight's command. Razors weren't immense ships, so no room seemed large enough for its intended use, the brig least of all.
I volunteered to bring the mutineers their meal,
I whispered back. Against the bars, I held a basket of fruit and bread we'd picked up in Pleasant Canal.
Cool,
he said, picking out the best pieces and tossing them to the others.
I would have tried to talk him out of putting you in here, but with my reputation right now, I think my intervention would do more harm than good.
it's all right.
He picked away the patch of mold on the chunk of bread he'd left for himself.
Might not think it, but Knight's got a merciful heart. Other captains would have us in the undersea by now.
He scarfed down the bread.
Merciful. Right.
The brig, as a reward for saving the ship, seemed merciful.
Some of the crew thanked me, called me a hero.
I told him, trying to lighten his mood. The barrelmen even patted my back, much like Robert did when I first boarded.
Well, there you go.
He raised his bread as if to toast. Crumbs leaked out of his chubby smile, then spilled over his sweaty chest. I laughed through my nose, then pressed my forehead against the bars, ginger locks cushioning my skin.
What will he do once we get to Port Glass?
He finished off the last morsel and swallowed dryly.
Find a new first mate, I expect. And I'll need to find a ship that'll take a mutineer.
I'd grown fond of Robert, his kind heart and even-tempered presence. Being on the ship without him seemed a gloomy prospect.
Why is the captain so cold and stubborn about the Razric?
Robert turned around and slumped with his bare back against the bars. I did the same. Our shoulders level, he whispered.
Winners are all for the spot on the Caucasus. Know that?
I heard something like that, yes.
Captain's got a notion that the Caucasus is being taken over by people not of his kind.
What, like humans?
Yeah. Humans used to rule Port Glass. The refugees and others kept coming to the city. And he thinks that's a problem for its stability. He's particularly afraid that a Gators will be given a position. Maybe even our good friend Kiloktanok.
I recalled the Gators captain's taunts. Then I thought back to my fears as a child during the war with Veroret. Tales of savage Gators devouring whole towns of Gorgonesians still gave me the chills.
That would scare me too,
I admitted. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he said,
You probably know about all of this. But Raiden is always going on about something that happens in the wild. He says that when animals are brought to a new land, island, desert, whatever, they sometimes grow out of control, killing and driving away the animals that belong there.
I said,
Yes, I've learned all about that. Entomologists call them species of conquest.
Many people would say that's what Gorgonesians were.
That's what he says he fears. To be supplanted by an invader. Although I think he may just fear becoming irrelevant. As if being a smaller part of a larger whole makes him less... well, just less.
There was another long silence between us.
Thank you for the food, Morane. I'm sure it was more than Knight asked you to give us. You're a kind soul. I'll miss you.
I stood and adjusted my robe.
You're quite welcome. Call us even for saving my life.
Cool.
He said without turning around. The deck had yet to be illuminated with the orange glow of lanterns. It was a magical hour where the ship was black and featureless, while the sky was anything but. It was like I was inside an eye, looking up through the pupil at a cosmic starscape. An iris tinged with the waning twilight rose into a dark blue that looked more like an ocean in that moment than the actual water around me. Its ethereal beauty felt like being in Abyss's arms again, feeling their fingers on my spine again. Staring into it might have felt lonely if not for my focus on the infinity of lights. I imagined each one to be the lamplight of distant ships, or even homes on floating shores. Around each star, a family, a crew, friends I could always look up to, that I could never leave. The Adel appeared deadly from the start. We'd reached a string of sand and jagged rocks sprouting from what might have been a beautiful reef just below the surface. One of the crew had a notion that there we might encounter trade ships from Rain, the island nation of the Cyrides. As Abyss had told me weeks ago, no native of Salakar could point to Rain on a map. Its exact location was a well-guarded secret known only to the Cyrides. But it was somewhere east of Port Glass, as their traders arrived with the rising sun. This atoll stretched along the ocean latitudes, providing a short if treacherous path for sailors.
What have we still to barter with?
Knight asked his quartermaster while I helped repair rigging damaged by the Mirabelli.
It's not promising.
The aged woman replied.
There's what's left of the rations, of course. Few cases of algae wine and molded bread. We also have the weaponry. Could always expect a few brass for the ballista. Other than that, we're poorer than a dry worm's ass.
Knight glanced at the spot where the Togren treasure had been, although his gaze didn't seem to touch the bloodstains from his slain crew.
Prepare the rations for transport,
he said defeatedly.
Damn you, Robert.
Minutes later, the barrelman called out, now perched atop a gaff since the crow's nest was in splinters.
Vessel ahead!
He yelled.
Brand and blood?
Knight asked, meaning the type of ship and its realm of origin.
Large, but too far to tell. Against a small bluff.
Could be stranded, in need of aid.
He muttered to himself, His eyes twitched wildly under his bushy brows.
All hands to stations. Prepare to render assist.
I knew that in the machinations of his mind, he was strategizing how best to ask a reward for the aid of a stranded vessel, or how to demand it. We did as he bid and jumped to stations. Soon we could all see the blighted figure amongst the rock.
It's of rain, Captain.
The barrelman called down.
Thunder wisp, by the look of it.
Vronti fungari.
Knight said softly, his thin lips quivered with an expression of equal parts fear and exhilaration. Seconds later I saw it, the largest vessel I'd ever beheld. It was an austere, floating leviathan covered in a pearl-like material, decorated with intricate weaving of silver filigree. A walkway made of something like sanded wood rimmed the top, which instead of an open deck was a thick protective dome of triangles that curved inward like the open maw of a shark looking up to the sky. I never heard of a ship bearing so much metal. There were no masts, no oars, no discernible mode of conveyance of any kind. It must have been magic keeping the thing afloat. Magic that had evidently run out.
What is it? What's going on?
I heard someone call from below our deck. I rushed down to find them. It was one of the mutineers, rattling the bars. Robert stood anxiously at his side.
A Syreed ship. We think it's run aground on the Adel. Captain said something about Vronti fungari. What does that mean?
Robert exchanged a concerned glance with the other prisoner, then said,
Morane, what does the captain intend to do with that ship?
He's ordered us all to the stations. I guess he means to help them in exchange for riches?
He wants to help a thunder wisp.
He scratched at his cheek, lost in thought.
What do you know of the treaties with the Syreed?
Not much.
What's important is that by the ancient laws of the Caucasus, any glasser who attacks a Syreed ship will face dire punishment. Hasn't happened in ages, but the captain and their whole crew suffer. A thunder wisp, the Vronti fungari, is an unmatched naval vessel of rain. Its crew is proud to a fault. They wouldn't accept help from a glasser if a maw had them by the ass. Rain knows this.
The pieces slotted together in my mind.
You mean he intends to...
Get us all slaughtered? I fear it, yes. Morane, you have to stop him.
He wouldn't listen to me.
If he's gone so mad, maybe not. But then, you must get me out of here. I keep a set of keys on the table behind the stairs.
He was asking me to join in the mutiny on my first real voyage as a Zivost. No captain would have me. I'd ruin my reputation, kill my career in the cradle.
I have to go.
I said as I snapped my head towards the stairs and ran.
Morane!
He called to me only once. Back on deck, we'd arrived within 30 meters of the Thunder Wisp. Knight stood confidently with one leg propped up on a low rail. He overlooked the ocean between us and the Syreed ship. A boulder had pierced their strange hull, wrecking it upon the outcrop. We could see a few Syreed sailors clad in gleaming silver armor that matched their vessel and luxury. There we saw proof that Syreeds were the unrivaled crafters of our age. But apparently even their engineering was no match for the hazards of stone. A callous crewman next to me seemed to bore into the Thunder Wisp's hull with his gaze.
What are you staring at?
I asked. He muttered in awe.
Some say the Syreeds can murder a hurricane. Then they take its heart and use it to move big, shiny floaters like that.
What's a hurricane's heart?
He looked back to the vessel and shook his head.
Dunno. But if the tales are true, then I guess even they stop beating eventually.
Then, without asking permission, Knight ordered a hefty line to be lassoed to a point on their bow. The wreck acted like our anchor.
Vessel of rain.
Knight shouted up at the taller ship in his gruff voice.
This is Captain Raiden Knight of the Journey's End. Bring out your leader, that we may discuss your rescue.
The Cyreeds manning the walkway ring stared at us, faces unmoving under silver-visored helmets. Knight whispered something to his surviving expellant who was standing next to him. The sorcerer nodded and walked aft-side. A tense air permeated our crew. They knew the signs, seen them before. I wanted to shrink into the cabins below deck, but I couldn't be torn from the sight of the Thunder Wisp. Minutes later, a Cyreed wearing only studded robes and an ornate silver helmet came from their aft. She brandished a strange, curved blade. It was more a hooked scythe than proper sword, and it looked iridescent, a deadly translucent rainbow. The tales I'd heard of glass from the old port sounded exactly like it. The weapon must have been a relic from the height of port glass. The Cyreed removed her helmet, revealing a suspended waterfall from scalp to shoulders, her crystal-clear hair.
Your offer is appreciated but rejected,
she said as she used her blade to cut the line connecting us. The sudden separation caused us to wobble where we stood. Knight's eyes followed the rope as it plummeted to the sea. He grimaced, then replied,
I'd ask you reconsider. For the sake of your people, that gash looks something awful. By the state of your ship, I'd say you don't have magicians enough to force the water out. Be my guest, and we'll take all survivors to glass.
She rested her blade on her shoulder and forced a smile.
Take.
Her hair jiggled like a bundle of jelly as she shook her head.
That's what you glasses do. You take what doesn't belong to you. That's your price, is it not?
Knight's grin looked crooked and vile, likely not what he intended.
Surely one of the grand Vronti Fungari can spare some of its worth. Consider it payment for services rendered.
She seemed to consider this for a moment, then said,
Once more, appreciated but rejected.
I saw the desperation in his face. Captain, I squeaked. He responded with a brief glance, dismissing my concerns before he'd even heard them.
Don't!
He kept his voice to a low growl, not letting the Cyreeds hear.
Stow yourself below, or I'll have you stowed. We don't need a beaster for this anyway.
I didn't have the stomach to argue, but instead of slinking off below deck, I moved beside the main mast and continued to observe in silence. Knight returned his attention to the Cyreed captain. He removed his boot from the railing, clapping it hard on the floor.
I asked nicely, fish. This be on you.
He trilled a warbling whistle. 100 things happened in that instant. Both crews brandished their arms, ours with swords and ballista, them with their curled blades and spears. But before the combat began, the expellant on the other side of our ship called forth a blinding crackle of lightning that arched from his hands to the highest metal tooth of the Thunder Wisp. The sound was like a bursting log on a hearth, mixed with an angry hornet, but 100 times louder, filling my ears with painful hot needles. The light jumped from metal to metal, biting into the silver-clad soldiers like a cat pouncing on prey.
Wait!
Their captain shouted as she extended an arm that made an invisible length with the surrounding seawater. Fluid shot up to intercept the lightning, diverting away from her and dispersing it back into the ocean. But the damage had been done. Almost all of the dozen Cyreeds on deck lay in pitiful, steaming heaps. Their eyes were charred black. The smoke rising from the interior of the ship indicated more dead inside. I puked on myself.
Boredom!
Knight commanded. Then those wielding ballistas on harnesses around their abdomens fired huge bolts over the rim of their vessel. Each bolt towed a rope. The force of their firing pummeled into their stomachs and made me wonder how they didn't puke too. The robed Cyreed turned back to us with the fury of a gale. She punched into the air, causing torrents of water against our hull. She slashed with her rainbow scythe, summoning lashing waves to sweep our deck, leaving many sailors with sogged faces planted to wood. But it was not enough to stop our own rising tide. Fighters scrambled up the ropes and boarded the walkway. Knight himself joined their assault, carrying a simple dagger in his teeth as he ascended. Each of our crew that reached the sole defender was cut down, proving her blade was for more than decoration. She moved with grace and rage in equal measure. We could never have taken on a ship full of people like her. As her right hand wielded her weapon, her left continued to thrash the end with falling towers of ocean water. The rigging buckled when the ship leaned away, casting us to the other side. I held tight to a mast, but I watched the barrelman plummet onto the railing, now more of a floor to us. His body folded back on itself with a sickening jerk. Limp, he slid down into the sea. Days before, I'd saved his life. He thanked me for it. Now he was dead, and I feared those of us remaining would soon follow. To my partial relief, the end soon righted itself, my counter-momentum pushing me against the mast and knocking the wind from my chest. I brushed hair from my eyes to see half a dozen dead or wounded fighters draped over the narrow thunder-wisp walkway. Night had nearly reached her now, and reinforcements flanked his side, vastly outnumbering the Syreed. I honestly don't know what motivated me to do this. Maybe it was pity for her, fear for our ship, or even fear of Night. But a compulsion rose in me. I charged over receding water towards the stairway below deck to the brig. A dangerous amount of water had filled the interior. I waded through the brine that lapped at my chest, then grabbed the keys still situated behind the stairs, awkwardly stepping my way to Robert and the others who were all clinging for dear life to the top of the bars.
You have to stop it, Robert,
I said.
I don't know how, but...
What's happened? Did he attack them?
He asked, helping me slot the key into its lock.
He killed them.
Saying it aloud made my stomach convulse again.
All but one. And he's about to kill her. And half our crew has died already.
I pulled the barred door out through the water.
I know life aboard a razor's bloody, but this...
I know.
He sighed, letting his cellmates exit first.
He's due 2 ships today. Probably thinks he can kill all the Syreeds and swear the crew to silence. Then he can get away with it.
Is he right?
He closed his eyes as if in mourning.
Expect these things of having a way of catching up with a soul. There's an old Glasser saying, the ocean churns, but remembers.
He finally stepped out. We ran up to deck, then saw the Syreed captain being swarmed by the last of our fighters, many of which leaked from fresh wounds. As we reached the railing, someone landed a cut up her exposed back. Distracted and howling in pain, she dropped her guard, allowing Night to swipe away her blade with a mighty fist.
Stop this, Raiden!
Robert called to him. The fighter behind the Syreed put her arms in a lock and forced her to her knees. Our captain held his dagger to her throat, smiling madly.
You can't see from down there, Robert, but there's more riches in this wreck than we've ever dreamed. Celebrate. Your children will never know hunger.
Robert shook his head and started towards one of the boarding lines. I knew he'd never reach him in time. My heart slammed into my rib cage as I watched Knight's dagger raise for a final blow.
Captain!
I shouted, not sure what my next words would be.
The Mirabelli! It's back!
I jabbed a finger into the air, pointing above him. I was shocked that it actually worked. Knight and the others with him reflexively looked up. Even though Robert was still too far away to stop him, the Syreed captain seized the opportunity like a barracuda striking its prey. With a pained groan, she freed her right arm and motioned for a wave, larger than any before, to rise well over her ship and engulf everyone on board. Robert was knocked back onto the end, but our fighters, Knight and the Syreed, were pulled overboard into the ocean. As I leaned over, I could just make out the sight of her wrapping slick limbs around Knight, ensuring he had no escape as they both sank into the depths. Robert hacked up seawater while I helped him regain his footing. Knight, I said,
she took him under. Drowned for sure by now.
Good.
He moaned between coughs.
She's probably dead too.
Not necessarily. Cyrus can breathe water. She could still be. He shook his head and gave me a somber scowl.
Knight wouldn't let her go without a fight. And I don't know how long they can survive the deep pressure.
I surveyed our surroundings. Only a handful of our original complement survived. Those lucky few were looking at us, relieved but melancholic.
What now?
Robert looked at each crew member, then stared at the thunder wisp for a long, quiet moment.
We look for survivors. Then we cut the lines and leave this place to the tides.
You're the captain now, right?
He seemed surprised by the question, as if he hadn't considered it.
I suppose so.
What'll happen when we get back to Port Glass? Knight made the decision to break law, but he's dead now. Does that mean we'll be innocent?
He placed a hand on my shoulder and looked straight through me.
I don't think it works like that.
His hand slid away, teasing me with its comfort.
We'll speak on it later.
Dusk had set in, and beyond a few wounded members of our crew, we found no survivors. I opted out of searching the Thunderwhip's interior, and Captain Robert didn't press the matter. But he refused to speak on what they saw inside the vessel beyond more electrocuted Cyrides. I didn't press the matter either. As for the former captains of both ships, neither surfaced. It still might have been possible that the woman could just turn up elsewhere or at a later time, but we decided not to stay longer. Aside from the concerns over supplies lost in the struggle, some of the crew mentioned it was bad luck to linger at a battle site.
Goes so quick to root when planted,
they said. The journey back wasn't long. However, on the way, Robert explained to the crew, as much as he could, what would happen. He said that it'd be best if we presented ourselves at the Caucasus' mercy because they'd find out what we did eventually. They had ways of seeing further than anyone could know, but they might be lenient in their sentencing if we confessed. After, he pulled me aside and whispered,
Morane, you're in a unique position. I don't know if you remember, but Raiden ordered us to leave port before your name could be added to the Caucasus Authority manifest.
And?
Know what that means? They don't know you were here. You need not face punishment.
Oh,
that hadn't occurred to me. He was offering me an out. I didn't know what this punishment entailed beyond exile. At best, I'd probably lose all credibility as an entomologist and a sailor. At worst, I'd also have my eyes gouged out and head shaved. I was rather fond of my hair. But no matter what I choose, Robert and all the other crew I'd helped save would be held accountable. Accountable for actions I was just as guilty of.
I'll arrange for a boat to carry you off before we get too close to port. Go live your life. You're a good Zivostum. It'd be a shame to give that up, but regardless, I won't have your fate decided by an old, outdated law. Not when you're innocent.
So are the rest of you, I said, putting my hand over his and moving both over his still exposed chest.
We've had years to stand up to that madman. Years of standing by while he sold slaves and risked us for the sake of his own pride.
He smiled and joined his second hand to his chest, sandwiching mine.
Took you a month to defy him.
No longer staring at me with envy or distrust, the handful of crewmates left on the journey's end stood at the port side, watching me paddle away in my small rowboat. I saw gratitude in their eyes where I expected to see shame at my abandoning them. I think they were just glad that someone, even just one of their comrades, could escape their fate. Robert looked happiest of all. He smiled and waved with one of those damn saucer-sized hands. He winked a beady eye, and that's when I began to cry. The tears blurred the ship from my view. That was the last time I saw the journey's end. My first real job, my first real ship, my first real crew. A memory of a dream turned into a nightmare. With one of the smaller docks in sight, I rowed towards it. eventually making land without difficulty. A crowd of people were amassed on the shore, staring at the last of the ships to return from Razric. A conversation between a Gatus man and two human girls caught my ear.
My darlings, Papa will be returning any moment. Calm yourselves.
It was uncanny to hear the monstrous serpentine voice speak with such tenderness, let alone to two human children.
But I want to see the ship,
one of the girls exclaimed.
You know we must wait, Yoli. Once the end docks, Papa will find us.
The end? Two girls and a Gatus were waiting for someone on the crew? Most had died. They could have been waiting a long time, poor things. Pity for a Gatus was a new feeling for me. His coarsely scaled, algae-green snout exhaled as he scanned the bay.
Why?
The other girl asked, swinging on the Gatus's clawed hand as if she was learning a clumsy dance.
Because my husband doesn't like his captain to see me,
he said with such vitriol. Husband? I let my curiosity get the better of me. Excuse me, I said, walking up to them. Did you say your husband is on that ship? He scrutinized my Gorgonetian robes, then motioned for the girls to stand behind him.
That's not your business.
Please, I'm waiting for them too. The red dorsal crest on his head raised slightly, almost a quizzical expression.
First mate,
he said.
Robert.
My heart shattered. In the main plaza where Robert had weeks ago given me an impromptu tour, he now bent the knee to the Caucasus Authority. Two humans, an elf with long, drooping ears like a dog, and the old Togrin that announced this Razric, sat at a table in front of the huge open square of water. The table was a single gray slab, a monolith resting on its side. How it was even brought there was a mystery to me. Next to Robert were the rest of the Journey's End crew, lined up and also kneeling before the slab.
The 302nd Caucus iteration will now assemble,
blustered the Togrin, twitching his tattered ears.
Authorities!
He coughed.
Authorities, present yourselves!
The slack-eared elven man stood. He was young and thin, wearing a blue robe adorned with clamshells on strings. They clinked as he spoke.
Thenis, formerly of House Pelto, present.
Next, a mountain in human form stood, skin near bursting from the top muscles underneath. He wiped sweat from his eyes, but smiled as he groaned.
Medithea.
Then he sat. The Togrin rolled his eyes at the brute and cleared his throat expectantly.
Fine.
The man said in protest.
Medi Theodore, present. Obviously.
Then the human woman spoke. She was also aged, nearly in her 70s. But her form was lithe and almost seemed to undulate from side to side as she stood.
Titian Androma Gale, present as well.
Lastly, the Togrin stood, supporting himself on his thick, furry arms.
Ixim Ball, present.
He cleared his throat before adding,
Eldar Authority Anth will join us shortly.
The other authorities at the table looked at the Togrin incredulously, but remained silent.
But we shall proceed with the first business without them. So, the winner of the 699th Razric is the Veraraft, captained by Keloktanok.
Applause roared from the 1,000 people surrounding the plaza. Robert winced and lowered his head. He turned to the crew beside him, whispering,
I'm sorry.
The Gatus captain strided to the caucus, then bowed.
A fine choice, authorities, she said as she straightened. The Togren authority Ixibal shook her hand, saying,
30 cases of sucker dates, 200 kilos of Ronodrek orca, and a sunken hoard of loot from the time of the Alliance, made for an easy decision.
It's amazing the things one can accomplish without bloodshed.
She winked at Robert, who wasn't looking at her anymore.
Indeed. Now, the caucus has deliberated and would like to grant you a position on it. Do you accept?
It would be an honor.
Then take your seat at our table, Authority Keloktanuk.
The crowd applauded again as she skirted around the edge to sit by meaty Theo. The man offered her a raised fist with knuckles pointed to her. She smiled and bumped her own knuckles to his. They shared a laugh.
Now, to more unfortunate matters.
Ixib continued.
Crew of the Journey's End.
Robert and the others shifted where they kneeled.
You, of course, understand that by ancient law, we must refer to you by your captain's name until this is done.
Robert nodded. Ixib said,
Good.
He cleared his throat again.
Captain Raiden Knight, the caucus has deliberated, and...
Wait! I finally cried out, pushing my way through the crowd, then running to Robert's side.
Morane,
He whispered.
what are you doing? Get out of here!
I pulled back my hair and knelt beside him. I looked at Ixib, saying,
My name is Morane L. It wasn't on the End's manifest, but I am a member of its crew.
While the authorities excitedly argued with each other concerning my interruption, Robert scolded me.
Why in the festering undersea did you come back? Do you have any idea what Kellogg will want them to do to you?
I met your husband.
You... what?
He's a Gatus. His face turned cherry red.
What does that have to do?
Your family loves you, Robert. Your crew loves you. Knight hated Gatus. You risked your position, maybe even your life, for your family. Nobody's ever cared about me like that, and it's because I ran away. I ran away from an orphanage to be an entomologist. I ran away from Gorgonas to become a glasser, and I almost ran away from you.
He sighed and made a defeated chuckle, letting his knees slide apart on the wood flooring.
And now you've run away from a happy life of freedom to be an exile, an outlaw, or to die.
No, I'm not running away again. Whatever happens. So whatever punishment my crew is given, I'm sharing that burden.
He held my hand. Ixib then silenced the others by scraping 2 curled feline claws across the slab. He looked to me, asking,
You wish to face the same consequences as the others?
Yes.
I affirmed, squeezing Robert's hand tight.
Very well. Raiden Knight, for the crimes of breaking the peace accords between Port Glass and Rain, the killing of innocents, and corruption of the Razrik. You and your crew are sentenced to exile from Port Glass, its affiliated colonies, and all the world's oceans. Your vessel, the Journey's End, will be scuttled, and all it contains will be sent to the undersea. To assist in carrying this justice, Elder Authority Anth will now join us.
Authority Titian Androma Gale then stood once more and picked up a strange, stringed instrument from the floor. She carried it over to the edge of the open square and plucked 3 soothing notes, which reverberated across the plaza. In the silence, I could hear the voices of Robert's children cry out for their papa. He raised his head and scanned the crowds for them without calling back. Seconds later, a mass of stone and coral, shimmering in a spectrum of exotic hues, breached the surface of the water in the square. It was a floating island of things only meant to be seen under the waves, like the whole port sank at a low tide, allowing us to see the exposed seabed. Ixib stood and walked to us, not speaking until I could smell the odor of damp fur on him.
This I want you to know. It has been decades since we've had to make restitution for such a transgression. Then we would take the heads of those responsible and send them to reign. However, Anth
He pointed to the floating coral island.
asked us to show you mercy.
What is it?
Robert asked.
A koakua.
I whispered in awe. Mind coral. One of the rarest creatures in all the sea, and possibly the most intelligent. That single creature was made of coral, algae, plankton, and a dozen other creatures bonded together by sorcery and things stranger than magic. One mind, many bodies.
Yes.
Ixib replied, smiling at me with bubbling pride.
When our founders first landed on the shore, they met the Koakua. They guided the founders, helping them survive. They called them Grandparent Anth, the first Caucasus authority.
Whale balls.
Robert cursed.
Anth has lended us their sight beyond the sands. They've looked into your souls, your memories. They've found guilt, yes, for more than just Raiden's misdoings.
Robert let go of my hand.
But also hope for redemption. You are to be changed and cast out of port onto the path of destiny.
What does that mean? I asked. For a moment it seemed he would answer. Then Ixib returned to the table before expelling a roar that was out of character for the calm old cat, and nearly deafening to us. After the roar subsided, Anth glowed. Reminiscent of the iridescent glass of the Cyreed captain's blade, the plaza was warmed by a spectacular display of colors. It all came from the myriad of creatures making up the Koakua, even those too small to be seen. Robert and I both looked at our own skin in horror as it melted away. There was no pain, just a tingling, buzzing feeling, like fingers falling asleep. Underneath our human flesh, new tissue emerged. A viscous, pale color was now on Robert. His face peeled away to reveal a sagging, bulbous mound of flesh. He now resembled a fish given human shape. A blobfish, I thought, misshapen by unfamiliar air and gravity. The same was happening to all our crew. Sharks, rays, flounders, crustaceans, each transfigured into a hybrid of human and sea creature. He made a spurting sound through his rubbery lips. Then he managed to say,
Morane, you...
I looked at my arms. Pale green, dry scales ran along my limbs. Am I a gatus? I wondered. Then I felt my face. Where my nose should have ended, a long snout and jaw protruded a foot from my skull. The form was familiar to me. The position of my eyes, the long, fleshy neck under my face. It all told me what I'd become. Not a gatus. An eel, I said, then removed my hand up further. There was some relief. At least my hair remained intact.
What a fitting fate for a bunch of Pepno's slavers!
Kellogg shouted with glee.
Ha! Robert is now more of a blobbert! And the Gorgonisian!
She looked back to the Koakua.
And you comedian! Don't even have to change your name. Morane Ale, the Morane Eel!
That will be enough, Authority Karaktanak.
Ixib groaned. The Gatus composed herself but kept a hand over her snickering snout. Ixib said,
Captain Raiden Knight, your punishment is concluded. Salt water is now as poison to you. You have 2 hours to leave Port Glass. This caucus is concluded.
Insanity.
Robert's husband shouted and bit at the air furiously.
This city is insane. How could they think this is right?
Standing at the top of the causeway overlooking most of the city, I waited for him to say his goodbyes. Robert cradled his neck in one hand and rubbed his arm with the other.
Calm down, darling. There's nothing to be done.
It was heartbreaking to see his girls hide from their father's new appearance. They peeked from around their other father's tail.
Sweeties, it's me, your papa.
They shrank even further away.
They'll get used to it.
He rested his scaled nose on Robert's moist, thick neck.
They got used to me after all.
Robert kissed him, then drew back from the sensation of his own slimy lips.
Not much time.
The intrusive, flatulent sound his mouth now made did nothing to make this moment any easier. The name Blobber would doubtless stay entrenched in his memory forever. As for Moray Eel, I took to my new form oddly well. Snaggleteeth and webbed fingers might be difficult to deal with come mealtime, but I decided to build that bridge when I came to it. In the meantime, I marveled at my firm yet smooth skin, now a darkish green olive tone freckled by tiny black spots.
Why can't we come with you?
The Gatus asked.
This kills me, darling. You have to keep your shop running. I'll go inland with the crew and find work. Before long, we'll have saved enough to settle somewhere that will welcome us.
Glass was the only place that did that. Where else could we go?
I saw armed men marching up the causeway. I began saying,
Captain, I think it's time to...
I know.
He grunted, his blubbered head sinking into equally blubbery shoulders. He then hugged the Gatus tighter.
Tarek, hug them for me.
I will. They'll know their papa misses them every day.
I'll find somewhere we can be happy, even if I have to conquer the place myself.
He chuckled and involuntarily spat on his jacket. We looked out into the desert west of Glass. Its sands burned white where once in ages past it was blanketed in gleaming rainbow dust.
The crew present?
Robert asked me.
All 12 of them, Captain.
Captain.
He shook his head.
No ship, no sea. Hardly a captain without that.
I thought the same thing about being a Zivast until someone back in port told me about a giant lake at the center of Salakar.
How giant?
They say it's like an ocean, with monsters, treasures, and ships. Big ones.
Cool.
It was great to see him smile, even as off-putting as his thick, rubbery lips were. His boyish grin might have been his best feature, next to his beady eyes.
Well, gotta get across this desert first. Ready the crew for a march. First mate. Morane.
Above, the unfettered sun promised a long, arduous journey. Around me, snarling, crack-tooth, and bestial sailors bumped and prodded one another. Below, the dry sand grated against my toes, and I couldn't remember ever being so excited.
End of recording. Thank you for listening.